What if I told you the United States government just accidentally made $50 billion off a single social media post?
I mean, I'd say you're crazy.
Right. But wait, there's more. As a direct result of that exact same post, the next iPhone you buy might actually have to be manufactured by one of Apple's oldest, most bitter tech rivals.
Yeah, it really sounds like the plot of I don't know, a financial thriller or something. But it's actually the very real, very messy reality of how the modern global economy is operating right now.
Exactly. So, welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Our mission today is to unpack a completely wild 24-hour news cycle. We're looking at a situation where digital supply chains, massive political shockwaves, and cutting-edge robotics are all violently colliding.
Yeah, colliding is definitely the right word for it.
It is. And we've pulled together a massive stack of sources for you today. So we are looking at market data from CNBC and MarketBeat, plus some really deep supply chain analysis from Apple Insider.
And we also have a very pointed regulatory oversight letter from the Senate Banking Committee to get into, plus some mind-bending new video releases from Boston Dynamics.
Yeah, that Boston Dynamics stuff is wild, which
Yes.
means basically we are connecting dots that stretch from the halls of Washington to the silicon fabs of Asia, all the way to autonomous factory floors.
Right. It's a huge scope.
It is. So whether you're prepping for a major investment meeting or wondering why the price of your gadgets is about to spike, or, you're just deeply curious about the future of human labor, you need to stick around. We're putting this whole puzzle together for you.
And I think we got to start with that first puzzle piece, which dropped on June 18th, 2026.
Oh, yeah. The Post.
Right. When President Trump logged onto Truth Social and just kind of casually announced that Apple and Intel are joining forces.
Joining forces to design and manufacture hardware components right on American soil.
Which is just a staggering statement on its face. I mean, Apple and Intel have a famously fractured relationship.
Totally.
And the financial markets, they basically treated this announcement like an absolute earthquake.
Yeah, the shockwave was instantaneous. Within hours, Intel's stock surged roughly 10%. It hit a 52-week high of $135.48.
Ooh.
Just that one jump pushed Intel's total market cap to nearly $608.7 billion.
But okay, here's the critical context that makes this whole thing so unprecedented.
Right, the government angle.
Exactly. The U.S. government isn't just a bystander watching this stock pump. They actually hold a 10% equity stake in Intel.
Which is such a fascinating piece of financial engineering, because it's not like the government just went onto an online brokerage and bought shares.
Oh, yeah, they didn't just open an E-Trade account.
Exactly. That 10% stake was acquired when $8.9 billion in unpaid GHGS Act grants were converted directly into equity.
So the government essentially became a primary investor in the physical infrastructure of American chipmaking.
Exactly that. And the president made sure to highlight that massive windfall in his announcement. He was touting the fact that this government stake's value has absolutely exploded.
Because the valuation shifted so dramatically.
Right. Intel's overall valuation went from roughly $100 billion back in August up to that $600 billion mark today. That's a span of just 9 months.
Which is an insane trajectory for a legacy tech company.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that makes the American taxpayers' 10% stake worth over $60 billion now. Plus, you have to look at how this perfectly dovetails with Apple's own AMP initiative,
Oh, right, the American Manufacturing Program.
which was a $600 billion commitment to U.S. manufacturing over 4 years that Apple announced back in August 2025.
Yeah, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, this represents a seismic geopolitical shift in how statecraft and commerce actually interact.
How so?
Well, we are not just talking about a simple vendor agreement here. The U.S. government is now the single largest shareholder in a private tech giant. And the highest office in the land is actively using the bully pulpit to forcefully redraw the entire global semiconductor supply chain, pushing it away from Asian dependency.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think we need an analogy here. Imagine a high-stakes corporate merger between two massive Fortune 500 companies. Right.
Oh, okay. I'm with you.
The traditional playbook says the CEOs sit down in a boardroom, they sign a mountain of non-disclosure agreements, draft a meticulously worded press release, and announce the deal on a scheduled earnings call.
Right, so the market can digest it calmly.
Exactly. But here, the President of the United States is announcing the strategic manufacturing plans of two private tech giants on a social media platform.
Before either company has confirmed a single detail.
Exactly. It sent Wall Street into an absolute frenzy.
But, the volatility is almost the point. It is a completely new method of forcing corporate action through public market pressure.
I hear that, but I'm looking at the Apple Insider analysis from our stack, and the narrative the market is buying right now doesn't really seem to match the reality on the ground.
You mean the hardware reality?
Yeah, it seems like a massive reality check. Because Intel executives were reportedly caught completely off guard by this.
Yeah, they were.
They were quoted as being surprised by the announcement because the deal is strictly preliminary.
Right, and the physical realities of chip manufacturing move a lot slower than stock prices do.
Right.
Making semiconductors is arguably the most complex manufacturing process in human history. I mean, you are printing billions of transistors onto a silicon wafer at a microscopic scale.
Which brings up a huge question for me. Is Intel actually capable of making the chips Apple needs right now? Because my understanding is they aren't going to suddenly start printing the ultra-advanced 2-nanometer chips for the upcoming iPhone 18.
No, that is correct. They are nowhere near that level of mass commercialization. Intel is currently just entering what the industry calls risk production on their new 18 AP process node.
Wait, really quickly, what does risk production actually mean for the folks running the factory?
Good question. It basically means they are turning the machines on to see what breaks.
Oh, literally testing the limits.
Exactly. In risk production, they are testing the manufacturing lines and dialing in the photolithography. The yields, and by yields I mean the percentage of usable non-defective chips they get out of a single silicon wafer, are usually incredibly low at this stage.
So it's just an experiment.
Purely an experimental phase. They need to identify defects before they commit to mass production. It takes years, literally years, to go from risk production to a stable commercial line.
Meaning they definitely aren't making iPhone chips tomorrow.
Far from it. If this deal goes through, the consensus is that Intel will likely start by fabricating older, significantly less advanced M-series chips.
Like the ones for laptops.
Right. Those go into devices that have more physical space for cooling, like the MacBook Air or the entry-level iPad, and even then, those wouldn't roll off an American assembly line until 2027 at the earliest.
Wow. So we have a multi-billion-dollar market reaction to a preliminary deal for older technology that won't even arrive for a year.
Yeah, that's the reality.
That sheer disconnect brings us to a crucial piece of context regarding market regulation. We really need to look at this very specific letter from our stack. It's dated April 11, 2025.
Right. The Senate Banking Committee letter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sent directly to SEC Chair Paul Atkins. And just to be absolutely clear to everyone listening, we are simply reporting the documented contents of this letter from our stack.
Exactly. We aren't taking a stance here, just laying out the timeline they provided in the document.
Right. So the letter was signed by a group of Democratic senators, Warren, Schumer, Wyden, Kelly, Gago, and Schiff. And they formally demanded an investigation into potential market manipulation and insider trading by Trump administration, insiders, and donors.
And they pointed to one very specific morning to justify this demand, didn't they?
They did. At 9:37 a.m., President Trump posted, quote, "This is a great time to buy DJT," unquote, on Truth Social.
Okay.
And then, roughly 4 hours after that post, an official pause on economic tariffs was announced. And markets obviously surged on that tariff news.
Right. So the mechanism of their concern is how information travels before it hits the public.
Exactly.
They are asking the SEC to look into options chains and trading volumes in those specific 4 hours to see if anyone profited from prior knowledge of that impending tariff pause.
Now, the really thorny part of the letter questions whether recent budget cuts to the SEC are intentionally impacting the agency's physical ability to investigate these kinds of events.
Because the resources required are massive.
Yeah. Tracing thousands of complex trades across multiple global platforms in a 4-hour window. That takes an enormous amount of manpower and software resources.
It really highlights a systemic stress point. I mean, we are living in an era where market-moving announcements happen instantaneously at all hours of the day.
And on social media.
Exactly. Yeah. And the traditional regulatory bodies are just struggling to keep pace with the sheer volume of that volatility.
I hear that.
Yeah.
But I really have to push back on the dominant narrative here for a second. Let's look at the facts we've laid out. Intel is barely in risk production, the executives are surprised, the yields are likely terrible, and we have senators pointing to a pattern of highly opportunistic social media posts preceding market movements.
Right.
So are we looking at a genuine fundamental shift in the American tech landscape, or is this just a massive sentiment pump driven by a political insider group chat with a global megaphone?
It's a fair question,
Hmm.
but I'd actually argue it is fundamentally not just a sentiment pump, despite how chaotic the rollout looked.
Oh, why?
Because you have to separate the headline volatility from the physical infrastructure investments. Yes, the immediate stock surge is based entirely on hype, but you cannot fake a multi-billion-dollar fab facility.
It's true. They are actually building these things.
And look at Intel's recent talent acquisition. They just poached Seok-Hee Lee, the former CEO of SK Hynix, to lead their advanced packaging division.
Okay, for some quick context for you listening, SK Hynix is an absolute titan in the global memory chip market.
They are massive, and you do not convince the former CEO of a massive global competitor to join your ranks unless you are dead serious about overhauling your manufacturing capabilities.
And you have the capital to actually back it up.
Exactly. The political announcement might have been aggressively opportunistic, but the physical pivot inside Intel is genuinely underway.
Which brings us to the most fascinating question in this entire supply chain saga. Why is Apple even entertaining this?
It's a great question.
Because Apple very publicly, almost aggressively, ditched Intel processors back in 2020. I mean, they spent years running marketing campaigns proving that their own Apple silicon was vastly superior, cooler, and faster than anything Intel could produce. So why on earth are they crawling back to their old rival?
It comes down to a brutal reality of physical manufacturing.
Capacity.
Yeah. For years, Apple has relied entirely on Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company TSMC to fabricate the chips that Apple designs. And TSMC is the undisputed champion of the world when it comes to advanced nodes.
But TSMC is currently drowning, right?
They are.
And they aren't drowning in orders for smartphones.
Yeah.
They are drowning in the insatiable global demand for artificial intelligence servers.
Exactly. Companies like NVIDIA are buying up every spare nanometer of TSMC's manufacturing capacity to build massive AI accelerator chips.
And those AI chips are fundamentally different, right?
Very different. The architecture of an AI chip is not like a smartphone chip. They are physically massive dies. They take up significantly more space on a silicon wafer, and they are incredibly complex to print.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and because they are so large and command such high profit margins, they're completely eating up the fab space that Apple used to just monopolize.
I mean, I already had to take out a small mortgage for my current phone, and the consumer impact of this capacity crunch is hitting us right now.
It really is.
Because Tim Cook recently admitted on an earnings call that the supply for the upcoming iPhone 17 was severely constrained specifically because they could not secure enough A19 chips from TSMC.
Right.
And he explicitly warned investors that consumer product prices are going to rise to offset the soaring costs of memory and storage chips, which are, again, entirely driven by the AI boom.
Right. So Apple is suddenly experiencing what it feels like to lose leverage. For a decade, they dictated terms to the global supply chain. Now they're standing in line behind the AI hyperscalers.
So what does this all mean? Think about it like this for a second. Compare TSMC to an exclusive 3 Michelin star restaurant.
Okay, I like this.
For the last 10 years, Apple has been their absolute favorite VIP regular. They always got the best table, the chef's full attention, whatever custom dish they wanted.
Sure.
But suddenly, a massive wave of new, incredibly wealthy AI billionaires walked in and bought out every single table in the restaurant for the next 3 years.
Wow, yeah.
So Apple is standing at the maitre d' stand, holding a briefcase full of cash. But there is physically no room in the kitchen to cook their food. They're desperately looking for a new chef, and that chef just happens to be Intel.
That perfectly illustrates the macroeconomic shift going on. Apple's hand is being completely forced here, and the broader market implications are staggering.
Because it's not just tech, it's geography.
Exactly. The AI computing boom isn't just a software trend happening invisibly in the cloud somewhere. The sheer gravity of AI demand is actively rewriting the geopolitical map of global manufacturing.
It's pulling supply chains out of Asia.
Yes, and forcing companies to rebuild them in the United States, utilizing companies like Intel simply because there is nowhere else left to go.
Okay, so we spent this entire first half talking about the trillion-dollar scramble to build the physical chips that power artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
The fabs, the geopolitics, the capacity squeeze. But what is all that massive compute power actually being used for?
Right, where does it all go?
It's not just to make better chatbots. All those chips are actively training AI models to operate in the physical world.
Yeah, the digital intelligence is finally getting a physical body.
And that takes us to Boston Dynamics. Sometime around May 15, 2026, they released a video that honestly makes every other robotics demo look totally obsolete.
It's incredible footage.
They showed off their fully electric humanoid robot, Atlas. In this video, Atlas autonomously walks up to a fully loaded mini fridge weighing over 100 pounds. It adjusts its grip, lifts the fridge, and carries it across a laboratory setting with zero human intervention or remote control.
Now, I know lifting a heavy box might sound somewhat mundane. A forklift can do that.
Sure.
But the breakthrough isn't the lifting itself. It is the underlying computational mechanism of how Atlas achieved it.
Yeah, because I was looking at the hardware specs in the release, and honestly, the robot itself seems surprisingly simple mechanically. Like, it only uses 2 types of actuators, it features infinite joint rotation, and it's built with field-replaceable modules.
Right.
So how is such a streamlined physical machine processing this kind of complex task?
That is the genius of it. The hardware is intentionally modular and simple, but the software is a total paradigm shift. The source material highlights a technique called zero-shot transfer.
Okay, explain how that works under the hood.
Yeah.
Because the video noted Atlas was primarily trained on objects weighing 50 to 70 pounds. It had never seen and had never been trained to lift a 100-plus pound refrigerator.
Never.
So it had to figure it out on the fly.
Exactly. Zero-shot transfer is effectively the holy grail in machine learning right now. Boston Dynamics trained the AI brain of Atlas using millions of hours of parallel GPU simulations.
Yeah.
They let thousands of digital versions of the robot practice lifting lighter objects in a virtual simulated physics engine. They fail millions of times learning the basic laws of leverage and balance.
And then
When the physical robot encountered the heavier, wider fridge in the real world, it didn't crash. It applied the fundamental physics lessons it learned from the lighter objects to a brand new, unseen scenario instantly.
it's pure AI-driven whole-body control.
Yes.
It had to dynamically adjust its center of gravity, balance perfectly on symmetrical feet, and route the immense force of that weight through its mechanical joints in real time just to avoid tipping over.
It is calculating physics on the fly, relying on the spatial intelligence trained on those exact same advanced silicon chips we were just discussing earlier.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about how we learn as humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compare this zero-shot transfer to a guy who works in a shipping warehouse.
Okay.
He knows how to safely lift a heavy 50-pound box of books. He uses his legs, he keeps his core tight, he has the muscle memory.
Right, he's done it 1,000 times.
Exactly. Then he goes home and he suddenly has to scoop up a squirming 80-pound golden retriever to put it in the bathtub.
Oh, man.
Right. He's never practiced lifting a dog before. But his brain instinctively adapts the physics of balance, leverage, and core strength from the box of books to the dog. The robot's neural network is now doing exactly that. It just adapts the physics to the new object.
That's a perfect way to look at it. And what's fascinating here is how quickly this is moving out of the research phase. Like, this is not a parlor trick designed for a tech expo.
No, the timeline is wild. Shipments of this new Atlas begin later in 2026.
And those shipments are heading straight to the factory floors of Hyundai.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, remember, Hyundai acquired Boston Dynamics back in 2021. So they have an immediate, massive industrial application ready for this technology.
That is huge.
We are looking at the immediate future of industrial automation. It fundamentally changes the equation for human safety and labor. A robot that can adapt to unexpected physical weights and shapes without needing an engineer to reprogram it for every specific task. That is a massive game changer for global logistics and automotive assembly.
Absolutely. When you step back and look at the entire board we've laid out today, the through line is incredible. The physical world is being completely reorganized by digital demands.
It is a feedback loop of innovation and, well, geopolitical necessity.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So for you listening right now, take a moment to absorb this. The smartphone in your pocket might very soon be powered by a chip manufactured in Ohio instead of Taiwan.
Right.
And that massive shift is happening not because of natural technological progress, but because of an intense geopolitical rivalry, the voracious capacity demands of AI server farms, and immense political pressure applied via social media platforms.
All hitting at the exact same time.
Yes. And the warehouse that ultimately ships that new phone to your house. It could very soon be staffed by autonomous humanoid robots that literally taught themselves how to adapt to heavy boxes by failing millions of times inside a digital simulated universe.
We're literally watching the architecture of the next century being built in real time.
We really are. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly thorny thread to pull on before we wrap up today. We established earlier that the U.S. government now holds a $60 billion, 10% equity stake in Intel, making it the single largest shareholder.
We did.
But the government is also the primary regulator of the financial markets, responsible for investigating things like market manipulation and insider trading.
Which creates an unprecedented conflict of interest at the highest levels of the economy.
Exactly. So here is the thought I want to leave you with today. If the federal government is simultaneously the referee of the stock market and the single largest financial beneficiary of the very private companies that are surging based on presidential announcements, what happens when a tech company becomes too big to fail?
Yeah.
Not just for the sake of protecting the American supply chain, but because its stock price is a critical asset on the U.S. government's own balance sheet.
That's the billion-dollar question.
Does the referee ever throw a flag on their own star player? Suddenly, that orderly system of rules and regulations seems a lot more complicated.
It is a question that completely redefines the relationship between the state and the modern corporation. It really does.
It's wild to think about. Keep a close eye on those supply chains, folks. They are telling a much bigger story. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us today.